Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Join me today. I welcome a special guest out there on the West Coast. We got Tyler Brown, aka Minstrel Acoustic. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. Thank you for having me, Brian. Appreciate it.
No worries. It's a good thing you posted a good bit on Facebook too, because that's actually how I found out about you. I'm like, he's new. Looks like he's trying to get out there as well here too. So it's a 50-50 shot. So thanks for responding.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you found me. Facebook's a great place to get out there a bit.
You ain't lying. So how you been recently? What's new?
I've been doing well. Nothing much is new. Just kind of continuing to work on music as I have time to do so. Um, but overall, yeah, just been kind of hanging in there, keeping out of the heat.
Yeah, the heat's been a killer this year, to be honest, too. It looks like it has been last few years. I would say climate change, to be honest. But
Yeah.
so, just to fill in the audience, I guess, which part of the West Coast are you hailing from?
From the Bay Area in California, so San Francisco area.
Hmm. You doing okay? Because it looks like let's talk about another wildfire kind of raging up there in the north.
Yep, there's actually a couple. There's one in sort of North Bay or a bit above the North Bay, and then a couple smaller ones around, East Bay, South Bay. So usually kind of comes all sides, unfortunately, out here. Um, but so far, the firefighters are doing a good job of kind of keeping it out of the cities, and out of the town. So I think everyone's staying pretty safe. I haven't heard of any evacuations, so um, hopefully there's no impediment to the air quality. So that could be tough too.
Yeah, you ain't lying. Actually, I remember there were wildfires up in Canada because I'm from the East Coast, so around the Pittsburgh, PA area.
Yep,
So
yeah,
the one time there were those wildfires up in Canada there. They moved their way down south, maybe mainly the smoke, obviously. But then you just see like pictures of New York, for instance, just go from like a normal day, then like probably less than an hour, it like goes to like looking like absolute hell outside.
yeah. No, those were bad, man. I remember seeing pictures of New York, and it was just red. Like the skies were red, and that happened out here once before too. And it was a trip to wake up and just see. It looked like hell. Yeah, it looked like, or I was on Mars or something. It was just completely red.
I'd say you're almost living like the life of Constantine before you know it.
Yep, yep.
Right, I can see why. But it's good to see you are doing well out there too. And I do have some questions about San Francisco, which I think will tie into COVID here, which is one of the questions. But
Okay.
first off, Ty, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And the way it's going to work is I'm going to ask you some questions. Let's get to know you more, both as the musician, but also as the individual as well here too. So, you ready?
Sounds good to me, Brian.
All right. We'll start here at the beginning. So, tell us a bit about yourself. So, who are you, and how did you become a musician?
Yeah, so Tyler, I'm 29. I I started becoming a musician when I was about 14. So it's been about 15 years for me. I started to play guitar. My uncle was a guitarist in a band that kind of just played some local shows, and I was very influenced by seeing him play, and I thought it was really cool. And as I grew up, and my dad showed me a lot of different kinds of music, all the way from like Black Sabbath, which influenced a lot of like my interest in metal. Then singer songwriters, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan. Uh, Loved like the Allman Brothers, and then I kind of found my own music and really started loving like Bullet for My Valentine, Trivium. I was really into Metallica for a long time, and those were all kind of like listening to all those bands and watching my uncle play. Really, just kind of I wanted to be a part of it in some way, and so guitar was always of interest to me. Especially, I watched. I don't know if you're familiar with the film Tenacious D with Jack Black and Kyle Gass playing acoustic guitar. I was like, I like how they kind of incorporate some metal into the acoustic playing, and so I ended up getting my first guitar at 14. It was an acoustic guitar, Fender, and that's where it all kind of started. And I've been on and off, playing consistently. I played like a band when I was in high school and early college, and and stopped for a while, and now I'm kind of getting back into it as I learn, production.
I do know about Tenacious D, and just a little bit too, because I think it was a couple songs. Let's see, it was a Pick of Destiny and The Mental, pretty much
Yep.
those two. So
Yep.
that's hilarious.
Exactly.
I forget what song it was too, but I think it was one that Jack Black was actually looking at on Instagram, and the guy was actually singing it like note for note and also word for word. You just see him like kind of turn his head like this, like
Yep. Yeah,
like
I know
just
exactly what you're talking about.
oh my gosh, it was hilarious. Then he starts singing it too. So funny stuff too. And actually, I don't know what he's been doing recently. Looks like whatever he said, and unfortunately, I think he had some little comments about the whole thing with Trump and that assassination attempt here too. So it seems like he wanted to fly under the radar now.
I did see that. I was disappointed by that because I love Tenacious D, and they had to pause their whole tour, and they put like all creative plans on hold. So I was like, oh man, that sucks. That's tough. I get it though. I get Jack Black's stance. So all good. I hope they come back and have new music and are okay, because I know they're best friends too, which is also another thing that's tough.
Yeah, that's for sure. Actually, I think he's too busy doing a little kung fu fighting as Mr. Poe and Kung Fu Panda. So
Yep. Yeah.
let's see why.
Great films.
Yeah, and I guess just to talk about this, I guess music project because I'm assuming it's just you, the
Yep.
Minstrel Acoustic.
Yep. Just me.
I guess fill in the audience. I guess how'd you start it, and I guess what's the history behind it?
Yeah. I mean, so Minstrel was interesting. I I had been for a long while been trying to write like metal music. A lot of like fast distorted riffs, and I didn't have any music production hardware or software. I had this Line 6 amp that would like let me do like a 10-second loop, and I would loop some sort of background riff and then solo or lead or whatever over it. That was the extent of my writing and recording, which I would just record on my phone. And about 8-9 months ago, when I started learning music production, using the recording software and the Focusrite hardware that I have, I tried starting with metal. And man, when you don't know anything about music production and recording, metal is complicated because there's just so many distorted sounds that you need to try and have come through in the mix, and it was just a lot. And I also didn't have anyone to play drums or do the types of vocals that I wanted in metal music, which is the kind of like screaming, like guttural, heavy stuff. And so I was like, man, well, I want to produce something. Like one of my biggest goals was just to produce music. I don't care if I have 2 followers or 2 people who like it. Like I just wanted to put something out. So I got like a microphone, and I was like, you know, I'll do some acoustic stuff and see like how that sounds. And it kind of came out like just playing through the microphone, like it came out pretty well. And it was a little bit easier because there weren't so many different things at play in the mix. I just had like kind of the rhythm, you know, uh, chord progressions, and then I could just kind of throw some lead stuff over it, and then and vocals. And that's kind of pretty much all was really necessary for a song. And then I use some MIDI softwares to like put in some other stuff, piano, violin, whatever. And so it made it a little bit easier, and it was kind of a process in which I learned how to do production. Because when I started, I was like, I don't know what EQ is, I don't know what compression is, I don't know uh, what gain, like how gain impacts anything. So I learned all of that kind of as I was producing. And I ended up, I probably wrote like, I don't know, 20 songs as I was like kind of putting out Lamplighter, which is the EP that you found me with. Um, I must have wrote 20 songs, and so 6 of them kind of came out to where I was like, I think these are cool enough to where like my friends, family, maybe some people out there would appreciate and enjoy. And I kind of had to figure out like, well, I don't really want to go out as like Tyler Brown. I I kind of want to have like a project name, and I just came up with Minstrel because I there's a lot of context to that, but yeah, that's how it all kind of came to be. Um, in just like the last 8 or so months, and ever since I put Lamplighter out, about it's been about a month since then. I I've just been going crazy, man, with writing different things and like trying different things because I'm getting a lot better with the production aspect. I actually understand what these things mean and how they make songs sound cleaner and better. And so I've been getting a little bit more excited to put out some new stuff. So um, yeah, I mean that's kind of how it all came to be.
Well, as soon as I say the word minstrel, I was thinking like he must have really liked Jethro Tull because there was that album, 1975, Minstrel in the Gallery. So
I have to say I haven't listened to a lot of Jethro Tull, but that is a band that my dad did introduce me to a little bit. Um, yeah, no, it came from my brother and I used to play this game called Gauntlet, Dark Legacy. There's classic ones from way back in the arcades, but um, there was a character. He was a jester, and he was my favorite character. I always played as him, and I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I have a tattoo of a jester too, and I was like, you know what, like minstrel's cool. Like that's a musician from back during medieval times or whatever. And I was like, it kind of fits. It's kind of cool. Um, so that's a little bit of the context behind the name.
mm, I see. And actually, have you tried to bring in anybody else to collaborate as well, or are you just gonna stick with just doing you and then I guess use MIDI and other stuff just to make the music happen?
Man, I would love to. Uh, I'm kind of working on like I actually have like a drummer and a vocalist now, so I am doing like a side project of metal. Um, so I'm I mean I love collaboration, especially for like the thing like the MIDI stuff, right? The It doesn't come out super um authentic as like like a violin. It doesn't sound. It sounds clearly like a software, and unless you pay like hundreds of dollars for the MIDI plugins for like to get like that orchestral sound that like sounds like Hans Zimmer. Um, it's really hard for it to come out really clean. So like, yeah, if I was able to get like a piano player or violinist, I'd love to do some collaboration on some music.
I say then it's almost like you're trying to do like a Linkin Park project with like some of the orchestral pieces they brought in, like
Man.
Paint and Breaking the Habit kind of happen.
Yes, I loved Linkin Park. That's a great yeah, they're a huge influence for me.
I guess speaking of which, outside of Linkin Park, I guess who else really influenced you in terms of your music wise?
I would probably say a lot of it started with Metallica, Tenacious D, a lot of like the singer songwriter stuff that has influenced what I'm doing with like Minstrel is like Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan. Trying to think of some other ones. The sound of like the Allman Brothers Band. Linkin Park is a big one for Chester Bennington's vocals is something I try to do. Um, though it's very difficult to get that kind of fry scream with the singing. Um, so I mean, those are some influences from the start, but what has really influenced kind of what I try to do now is like Trivium. Trivium's a big one for me. Um, As Lay Dying, lot of the kind of new metalcore bands, like vocally, kind of like A Day to Remember. Some of those, like, kind of Warped Tour bands. Yeah, I mean those are all kind of the bigger influences on my sound. But I listen to a lot of things, from hip hop, R&B to some country, outlaw country, specifically Johnny Cash, um, Willie Nelson, those kinds of guys, which are other influences on my singer songwriter type of stuff. Um, and yeah, so that's all. Those are all kind of the biggest influences on me. Um, there's a bunch others. I mean, so many other artists out there that probably have inklings of influence on what I do, but um, yeah, just to kind of start, those are some of the big ones.
Yeah. Did you know he turned 91, Willie Nelson?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh man, he's actually gonna die on stage. Oh my gosh, he's actually gonna
I
do it.
I imagine he would be one of them who would like to go out that way. Yeah.
And God bless him too. I mean, that's something else because I always remember the story because it was one of those Ken Burns sort of documentaries, and it talked about country music as well as like what was going on in Nashville too. I think one of the stories because he just was not going anywhere, and I think even some of his songs, because "Crazy" was picked up by Patsy Cline, she turned that into a single,
Mm,
and he wrote it on a napkin first off. But then I
love
guess,
that.
and because he wasn't getting anywhere, he actually went on the street of Broadway in Nashville there and fell asleep, and somehow no car hit him. So,
Wow.
so that's something too. It's almost like by the grace of God, he somehow still got up and everything. So that's something too. Give it up, Willie. We love you, man. Keep it rolling.
Yes. Yes.
And I guess here, let's jump into the hard topic, COVID. I guess first off, did you start this project right at COVID, before COVID, or I guess during?
Um, it was well, so during COVID, I was still in school and I was working full time. I didn't put a lot of time into music, though. When we all went into lockdown, um, I did have, because I was doing everything online anyways, work, school, and so um, with the extra hours that would come from like not having to commute anymore or not having to go to class, I did play a lot of acoustic guitar. Um, I wasn't writing so much, and I wasn't preparing to do any production. Um, I was mostly just kind of practicing. I was practicing a lot of like finger picking, Ed Gearhart, um, Tommy Manuel, trying to get some of that skill down, which is incredibly difficult. But anyways, I started this project maybe about a year ago, so a bit more post COVID. Um, but during COVID, because of all the time I had a lot to kind of get back into music. And honestly, I would probably equate that time to um, getting me back to take playing music seriously and uh, wanting to write projects and wanting to write music lyrics. Because before that, before COVID happened, I wasn't playing a whole lot of guitar. Um, and so I think that the extra free time, just trying to fill in the time a bit, and I got back into playing music more consistently, which has led to me here, um, just playing more, writing more, um, taking it a bit more seriously.
I guess how did COVID impact you personally, family wise, and you didn't mention about music wise, so obviously I gave you a little bit of free time here. But if you want to elaborate anything else music wise, go ahead.
Yeah, COVID, man. I remember when we were told we would be locking down for 2 weeks. I was like, oh, that's kind of a nice, little break. Like, working in person, commuting, and all that stuff. I was like, all right, well, 2 weeks, maybe we'll just kind of relax a little bit, and then it became 2 months, and then at some point 2 years, and it was um, it was impactful in various ways. I was blessed and grateful enough to keep my job through COVID. We kind of just uh, reverted to doing everything online. And so I was able to keep my job through COVID. And then I attended school, my graduate school, where I was able to do everything online there as well. Um, so very grateful for that and being able to kind of stay employed and stay, a bit stable. The way it did impact me was the isolation was a bit difficult, right? Just kind of being stuck inside. A lot of my hobbies are inside hobbies. I play video games, music, read, write, and so for some time it was kind of like, this is all right. Like I'm just inside doing these things. I'm taking care of school, work. But the way that it really impacted me was my anxiety because I felt I was worried for my parents, my grandparents, my family, my friends, just hoping that they stay safe, that they don't get COVID, that they don't get sick, that they're doing well mentally, too. Because some people that I know, they are always wanting to be out and they're always wanting to be socializing and not having that. I know how impactful that is on mental health. So um, yeah, it was just a lot of worrying on my part. And when people would get sick, it was just like, is this person going to be another one who passes away from COVID? Like just kind of so suddenly, and just being worried about the suddenness of those passings and the illness. And so, yeah, it was impactful in that way. But I'm thankful that I was able to um, kind of stay relatively stable personally throughout that time.
California was pretty strict, right, on the COVID policies.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime you went out, it would have to be necessary, right? So groceries or something else, and you were required to wear masks going into grocery stores, or anywhere that was indoor. Really, and there was no restaurants were all outside. They like took over parking lots and just had these big outside seating areas, which was kind of nice. I like sitting outside to eat, but um, yeah, it was very strict. Movie theaters were pretty much shut down. Um, yeah, they did. California was no nonsense about it.
I guess first off, did you have any brushes with COVID? Were you personally okay?
Yeah, I got COVID a couple times, and I didn't have such intense symptoms. And my grandmother also got COVID, and that was a big worry for me, because it didn't impact me in such a way. I'm a lot younger and I relatively healthy, so I wasn't super worried for myself. When she got it, she didn't get all that sick, and I was surprised that because she's over 70, and I was expecting that it was going to be impacting her a lot. But then I have friends who are my age, and they got COVID, and they were bedridden for weeks. Um, I knew this guy who he was a friend of mine. He had to go to the hospital because he couldn't get enough oxygen, and so it was just kind of a trip, and it made it actually more anxiety inducing because it was like we don't know, right? It's so unknown as to like, is this going to impact in such a way that like this person's going to end up in the hospital, or is this a cold, or a minor flu? Because it would sometimes be that way for people, like it was for me. Um, so yeah, I mean, I had a couple brushes with COVID. Um, Thankfully, again, very grateful for my health and um, the health of my family and friends. But yeah, they weren't too bad, those brushes.
That's good to hear. And just to tell a funny story, I actually got mine a little later. I guess was yours a little bit later too, or was it kind
It,
of in around the middle?
it was probably about I don't know, maybe 10 months later from when it started. It started in like March. I got it like just after the holidays, January or something.
Hmm. Actually, mine was in 2022. Me and my family, we actually went down to Nashville just to go party on Broadway. 'Cause,
Right on.
I would say it was. I want to say it was also the Ken Burns documentary I mentioned earlier. But of course, when you're bar hopping on Broadway and you got thousands of people around you too, you can imagine what happens. So I just first started with my dad, then it got to me. And when I got it, I tried hopping on my drum set, thinking maybe I could sweat it out, maybe see if get the body moving and everything too. I couldn't even get through one song. Right?
Hmm.
It was just that bad in terms of the fatigue.
Yeah.
And I actually woke up with a fever that night too, but I managed to get through it too, with putting on my sweatpants and just kind of wrapping my blankets around me, almost like a cocoon in a way.
Sweated it out. Yep.
In a way, yeah. I shouldn't say sweating, but at least creating friction to warm the
Mm.
body up. So, but in all seriousness, it's good to see you are doing well, there, mate. So good to have you around here for the ride.
Yeah. Same for you. Same for you. Yeah. Scary brushes with COVID. So glad you
Yeah,
and your family were okay too. I think it happened to a lot of people once lockdowns kind of restricted, because then it was just like, oh yeah, gonna go out to the restaurant or go out to the bar hopping. I'm gonna go on vacation again, because that was another thing, is you couldn't really travel all that much, and so um, yeah, I think once some of those restrictions lifted, people got it a bit more, or at least the people who were consistent with lockdown when they started going out, they got it. So
yeah. Even though we did travel, actually, even during it as well. I know a couple times we went to Georgia, so it was just something to at least substitute for not being able to travel overseas or up north to Canada.
yeah, yeah.
So you can see why. And I guess is California kind of lifted most of their restrictions? I don't know if they still have some in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of like it doesn't exist anymore out here. I see some people like with masks at the grocery store and things like that. But really, there are no more COVID related restrictions out here. Um, yeah, yeah. So it almost seems like it doesn't exist here anymore. But I hear, my girlfriend is a nurse, so there's still a lot of COVID, going around the hospitals, and there are people that still get sick with it, and there are these increases in cases, or which was interesting in the summer, because you can kind of expect like increases during the winter, but there have been a lot this summer, so it's still out there. It's still out there.
Yeah, I think I can relate in a way because I went to England and Scotland not too long ago, and since the climate's a lot cooler over there, people start getting like cold and flu bugs. And unfortunately, people don't know just to cough in their sleep like this. They'll do it like this.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, man.
first of all,
That
you just want to
bothers
yell at
me.
them too. I mean, first of all, I just want to yell at them too. I was like, can you cough in your fucking sleep, people? So
Yeah, seriously.
you try not to do, but it gets to a point where it's like the vexing point, to say the least. So
Yeah, it's worse when you're in an airplane too, and you're sitting next to someone, they do the cough in their hand. You know, so you're just like, oh man, I don't, just please, not in my direction.
I was like, don't give me your cooties, man. So
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to be
actually,
on vacation.
actually, surprisingly, no, it was not an airplane. It was more of a bus because we had to use a bus to travel around because we're traveling in tour groups. So
Yeah, yeah.
and with a
Same
bunch
but
of older
different.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's another one too. Yeah.
So, but this still ties in with COVID here too. But I guess San Francisco's always got a little bit of a bad rep, let alone the Bay Area and everything else here too. Mainly because I think it's conservative networks always ripping on you guys. But
Mm.
how is it in San Francisco now? Is it still pretty dramatic, a whole lot homeless and that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, since San Francisco's really been struggling with the homeless population, um, drugs, and kind of trying to figure out what's going to work for both sides, keeping everyone safe, but also making sure that if you're walking down the street just to go to the shops, you're not going to be like accosted, or there's not going to be people passed out on the side of the on the sidewalk. And it's just really tough, because I understand policy on both ends. I understand like trying to help the homeless, trying to help the people who struggle with drugs, and figuring out a way to make it work for them, um, but also at the same time ensuring that everyone can kind of walk around and be safe and not have to worry about if someone is you know, on some drugs, really struggling with that, and like, don't want to deal, don't want to have to like worry going into the city if I'm going to be accosted or around that. I do know that the governor just he just I think it was just this morning actually. He put in an executive order to clear out encampments and figure out some other way to help like the unhoused uh, have some sort of shelter in a way that's not just kind of wherever. Um, so I'm hopeful for the future, but it's been pretty rough out here lately, man. Like um, it's just a huge problem in the city specifically.
Mm, I see. So they're not totally lying, to say the least. So,
Definitely not. No, no, no. It might be a bit overblown. I don't really know how it looks to the rest of the country, but um, like I could still go to San Francisco and be able to go enjoy the city, but there is the lingering concern of like, oh, like, and you'll pass by it when you're walking around. But definitely truth. They're not lying.
I would say it's almost like anything Gavin Newsom touches turns to shit, to say the least.
A
So,
lot of people would agree with you that live out here in California.
mm. It's kind of strange too how he still ends up being in a governor position too. So it's either that he knows how to keep him high. So
Yeah, I don't know. He just kind of exudes politician, right? You look at him and he's clean cut and just knows how to speak, and it's kind of your typical politician.
I'll say he looks like one sexy motherfucker. So
Yeah,
anyway, okay. But I guess also in terms of the music scene here too, because everybody knows about the Bay Area. I guess other parts of California, depending on like where some of the other thrash bands that came out of here too. So
yeah,
how's the music scene been? And just in and around San Francisco, and I guess if you want to list anywhere else in California, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, it's always booming over here. You can always go see anyone who whether it's a huge band, Metallica, they play San Francisco all the time. Or if you're looking to, you know, see some indie artists, there's the Fox Theater, there's the Fillmore. Um, Great places, by the way. I just saw Idols, the Decemberists. So I mean, you could see pretty much anyone out here. And I'm not much for playing live. I haven't played live myself in a long time. So I'm not super sure how it looks for like a touring, indie musician. Um, though what I do know is that there are a lot of like small bills where you can kind of just like get in on this 25-minute time slot to play 5 songs with a bunch of other local bands. Back when I was playing in a band when I was about 19. um, we played some shows around California, and we played one in San Francisco at the DNA Lounge. We had to like sell a certain amount of tickets to like lock in a spot, and we were able to sell a bunch of tickets to friends and family, and so we got to play that, which was really cool. But that's kind of how it works a lot out here. If you're just starting, you're almost paying to play. In like we had to buy those tickets. We bought like 100 tickets and then sold them all, thankfully, so we got our money back. But uh, you kind of have to do that to get in at the start at least. And um, but the scene is booming. It's just you kind of really have to figure out a way to get into it, because there's so many artists out here, man. There's so many that put out music and play these shows. So it's as tough as pretty much anywhere else, I think. But there are options for those who want to play live.
I guess there is still hope for California after all. So
Yeah, yeah,
that could do it. And actually, they focus more on streams these days because in other interviews, I have asked like how their scenes have been as well here too, and they say like some bars They look more like how many streams do you have instead of like how many people can you bring in.
Oh,
So
right, right.
it's kind of similar out in California in a way.
Yes, I imagine so. I haven't really like gone out to ask if I could play like a coffee shop or anything like that. But just knowing kind of the landscape of social media influence, all that, I'm not surprised if people are asking, well, how many followers do you have? How many likes do you have? How many streams do you have? Um, which I get, because they want to make sure that they're putting someone out there who's going to help them make some money or bring in some people. So I get it. Um, it's tough to get those streams though. There's so many people out there. I putting anything out on like what I put out on Bandcamp, like you just even looking up like Minstrel, right? It's there's like 20 other artists that have Minstrel in their name. So like I don't know. It's tough to get music out there. Um, there's so many people that are so talented and put things out, and it just gets kind of swept under because there's just a lot of it. Which is also what I wanted to say about your podcast, Brian. Is like I love this, right? Like all music does matter, and you giving a platform to artists is fantastic. So I just want to say that to you about this podcast and this YouTube series. So
Thank you. It's also on Spotify as well here too, so make sure everyone goes out and check it out as well. So
love it.
actually, funny enough, Spotify one is the one you get a sneak peek to see it first. So it's always like a month or so in advance. Then eventually works its way to YouTube. So that's how it works. So let's see why. And before we move on to the next question, it's good to see you are doing well there, mate. So good to have you around here for the ride as well.
Thank you.
And what's the other thing too is this minstrel also plays with an acoustic guitar. So I think he differentiates himself from at least the other minstrels as well. So
appreciate that.
No worries. But let's jump into the gear a little bit here too. So I guess what gear do you use to make the magic happen?
Yeah, man. I use for my DAW, my digital audio workstation. I use Reaper. Just seemed the most accessible from the research I had done prior to getting into music production. When I was in college, I did a Pro Tools class, and man, Pro Tools was at least back then, which was a decade ago. I was like, man, I don't understand a single facet of this software. But anyways, so I used Reaper. And then my hardware, I have a Scarlett Focusrite Solo, which I'm looking to upgrade soon because it did the job for what I was doing a year ago, and now I kind of just need to add a bit more. But it's been great. And then I have, I have a Audio Technica microphone. Then I have a Key Station Mini 32 MK3 from M Audio that I use to write some of that MIDI stuff. The plugins I use, I have Tune Track plugins for some of the guitar vocal effects. I also, as far as the MIDI, have some Spitfire audio plugins for some of the like choir, piano, violin stuff. And then as far as my guitar goes, I still use the same Fender Acoustic that I got 15 years ago. Still sounds pretty good, I must say. And then I have an ESP LTD 7 string. That's what I usually write like metal music on. I don't use the electric guitars for anything for Minstrel. It's pretty much, as the name suggests, Minstrel acoustic. It's all acoustic. And yeah, man, that's all my gear that I use. I'm kind of slowly accruing things as time goes on. Different plugins, just kind of testing things out to find the right sound I'm looking for. So that's all the gear at this time that I've got.
I see. And I know you mentioned about two of your collaborators earlier. Are they in the same state, or do you kind of interact more virtually?
They are in the same state, but we do interact more virtually just for, convenience, that's an interest, and I think that's a uh, just something to mention of, like, I think that the landscape of recording is so great now because everyone has the ability through these, little hardware, things like the Focusrite Solo, um, where anyone can kind of do recording. And so it makes it easier for like independent artists. For example, the drummer that I'm working with, like he can just kind of record. I can send him the guitar work, um, with the time signature BPM, and he can kind of just put a click track and play some stuff to it, record it, send it to me, and we plug it just in. And so like I think it's great that we have the ability to do that now where we don't have to go to a studio. Granted, the, being in a studio with everyone together is awesome. It's just for like time management and all that. It's great that we can kind of just be at our own places, write some stuff, put it together, and be able to make that work.
Yeah, that's the beauty of technology these days, being able to interact more, both in the state, but also overseas and also within the nation as well here too. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's one of the things. And here we'll jump into this one right here. I guess. What challenges have you been facing recently being a musician?
Um, Man, there's definitely a few. I think a lot of it has to do with because I imagine other because I'm not making music to really like make it or like accrue any fame or anything like that. It's all just kind of creative, fun process for me. So, but I imagine if someone was trying to make it because that's like they're trying to make that their career, that would be very stressful. I'm seeing that just like having put out music and in a month, just kind of seeing how many listens it has and how many streams it has, and uh, if I was trying to make it in that way, I'd be very stressed out. Um, However, I would say that like one of the biggest challenges is being confident in yourself at times. Putting out music is pretty vulnerable. Um, you're writing things that mean a lot to you. You're producing them, some singing them, whatever, and that lends you to be kind of vulnerable. People are going to listen to it. Maybe they're like, "This is shit. Like, what are you doing?" And then if you see that, you're like, "Well, is it shit?" Or like, are they just not into it? Like, then you're kind of like, "Well, like, should I be even trying to do this?" So you really have to kind of like manage your anxieties and really try to keep your your like self esteem up and confidence up. In your abilities, which is can be difficult at times. And that ties in, of course, to the streams and stuff too. It's like, why won't people listen to this? Is it because it is shit? I don't know. Like I get like, you can get in your head, so that's definitely like one of the challenges. Um, I think time also is another challenge of like, because man, production takes hell a long time. I mean, just writing one song, recording it, trying to get all the takes, your best take, um, editing it, mastering it, mixing it, all of that. You're writing one song takes 25 hours to get it to a place where like you can get it to sound good. So I mean, a 6-song EP, you're putting well over 100 hours into that, and so working a full time job, like having friends, family, all that, like you really got to try and find the time. Um, and Yeah, and then of course the frustration of like when you are writing something, if you're not feeling it, you're just kind of like trying to put it out or something like, and it doesn't come out all that great. It's very frustrating. Like I just want to like get this song out, or I want to like get to this new EP or this, new project, whatever, and it's frustrating when it doesn't come out.
I would say, yeah, I've heard about. Actually, surprisingly, most people have always praised Reaper. I guess for its simplicity, for one thing. There's actually one in one interview, which I'll keep anonymous, but they actually said they tried Reaper and just could not get anything to match out. So it's like nothing would line up. So needless to say,
Definitely
gave us some gray
varies.
hairs. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know a lot of people. They really like Logic. Uh, what's the other one? Cubase? No, I think that's a part of Logic. I know there's a bunch of different ones, and some people just really jive with uh, Reaper. Some people swear by Pro Tools, and it's all preference. I just found that I think Reaper is the least technical, and I think it's the most accessible for new recording artists. Though I also am biased. I haven't really tried many others except for my one experience with Pro Tools when I was younger. But um, yeah, it definitely varies. The community, the music production community, at least as far as Reddit goes, seem to have different opinions on Reaper. Some people say it's shit, so I see that all the time. It works for me. Um, so yeah, but I get it. I get it.
actually, you were right about Cubase. Cubase is one, and then there's Studio One. Then Ableton's another good one. I know. I heard some people say they use.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to the preference. But I like using Logic one because I do have a Mac computer, so I mean
Mm.
it helps out here too. So it was cheaper. I would say I think I don't know about this, but don't take my word for it. But I swear I think there's like two different prices for it. If you have a Mac computer, it's like $200. I think any other sort of computer, it's like 400. So,
Oh wow. Did they have they have a partnership with Apple or something?
well, it is an Apple product. That's the reason.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So, but yeah, Logic's always been good to me. And then one of the things that was always good was it has its own little sound. I want to say sound samples, everything too that you're able to manipulate with your MIDI. So it's called
Love that.
Alchemy. So that was one good thing about it too. So, but it comes down to preference too. But it's always the most looked up question when it comes to what do you want to do when you get into music production and what sort of gear do you want. So
Yeah.
a good choice for Reaper. So just probably throw that out there too. So it's kind of a little bit a funny story to say. So
Yeah.
I guess in terms of like creating a song, for instance, too. So I guess how do you go about creating a song from start to finish? Do you do music, and I guess do you have any lyrics or vocal takes in your music currently?
Well, so I typically the way like a song, at least the way I write it, is I'll usually I'm kind of playing with like the rhythm of like a song. So, it's I'm sitting with the acoustic guitar, playing some different chord progressions, what sounds good, as kind of the foundation, just the background, like what's the guitar just going to sound like throughout the whole song? Just this kind of consistent chord progression, C, G, D, or whatever, and like that's put that down, um, and then like loop it through the song. Then I'm like, okay, let's do some lead, you know, writing, little solos or like these licks or like lead riffs that play throughout the song. And then once I have like kind of the music down, then I'm like, well, what does this song feel like to me? Does it feel like because I kind of get like a feeling of like, okay, well, it sounds like something that reminds me of the ocean. If we just take Lamplighter for example, like this song kind of reminds me of like being in the ocean. Okay, like why? How can I make a song out of that? Well, I'm feeling really close to my girlfriend right now. Like she helped me get through some hard times. Okay, how do I write about that with this feeling of like being in the ocean or whatever? And then kind of formulates into like lyrics about being like stuck in the ocean, which is like a metaphor for just like difficulty and challenge, whatever. And then, you have your lamplighter, which is someone who lights your way, and then that was influenced by my girlfriend, right? So like that's kind of how it all plays out. Um, and it's much the same for other songs too. It's like there's another song called Doc Black, where like it's really just a song about like it's I really like horror films and horror writing, and so I'm just like, well, what's like a story I could tell that's kind of like fucked up and grotesque and weird and like horror, and so that song ends up just being about like this doctor who is an immortal cannibal, and he uses his profession to like satiate his hunger, and like kind of just get that feeling through like the way the music itself sounds first. Like, oh, this reminds me almost of like a western or something, you know, some E minor, A minor transitions, like, or not E minor, E major, A minor, which I always thought sounded like kind of like this western tone. And so then I'm like, oh, I'll write a song about cowboys, or I'll write a song about whatever. And so that's typically how it plays out. I just kind of get this like sense of what the song feels like, and then use influences, whether it's like what I'm currently going through or something I'm interested in, and that typically plays more into the lyrics, whereas like feel plays more into the music.
Hmm. Okay, I see what you're saying. And trying to think of my train of thought right there too. Sorry, that was a little stuffy up. So fortunately, I messes with my train of thought to be honest. So
No worries at all.
actually, it was about your logo here too. So actually, at first it was like a big lighthouse. At first, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's a nice big lamp right in the big middle of the ocean here too." So it's
Yeah.
kind of similar to how a lighthouse would be in real life here too. So I guess was that AI generated too?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I use a software called Canva, where they have where you could put, just like any other AI software, you put in exactly what you're looking for, and it'll come up with all these results, and then you can kind of like edit it, put text on it, and all that. And so, yeah, it's been so helpful to put out just like images for different songs. And so, yeah, AI generated.
So I guess outside of your artwork, do you try to use it for anything else in terms of music wise, production, and
No, no, no. I think for the artwork, at least as far as like what I'm using it for, which is just like to put things out, because I would love to pay an artist to do that for me. I just don't really have the funds for it. So like, it helps serve me in such a way to where I can like have some art, whether it be AI or not, for album artwork or whatever. Um, Maybe one day I'll be able to pay someone to do something, you know, creative in such a way as that. But as far as music goes, man, I've got kind of a problem with that, with like AI generated music, because I've always thought music is very, personal to the artist, and people really relate as humans to music and the way songs sound, and being like, okay, this was a person or a group of people that wrote this, and I really love this, like I connect to them. And I don't know, maybe there's a place for, hey, I'm not trying to be any closed-minded to it or anything, but I really just think that music is the one thing that I don't think AI should touch. Um, so I don't know. I don't know how deep you want to get into on that, but like I don't really like AI in music, unless like it's for a small portion of like the song, and it kind of serves the electronic ish sound of a song or something. Then maybe I could understand that. But if it's a whole song that's generated via AI, then that's more, I don't know, problematic for me on a personal level.
well, that's been a question I had brought up here too. I know it's on the list, but I guess what else is your opinion of AI here too? Because there have been some like AI generated music. I think one was like showing like a fat guy riding like a jackass or something, but it was like one of the album covers on like Facebook that said like this guy has like 60,000 followers. It's AI programmed music.
Oh. Oh man, see that kills me because I'm just like, man, I spent 150 hours on my writing and my music production.
I don't know how many of them are real, so don't take my word for it. But
Sure.
uh, so you use it just mainly for artwork too. But I guess what's your overall opinion of AI?
I mean, I think it has like its place to really like, I don't know, make things a bit easier in some ways. I'm trying to think of like an example of where I saw, oh, like there's a documentation for like medical professionals. Like if an AI chatbot or whatever is able to listen in on, I don't know, like a doctor's appointment or something, and just like write out the notes to be like, this is what was talked about, this was the prescriptions given or whatever. Like I think that would be really helpful because then that would free up doctors or practitioners to be like, okay, I don't need to focus so much on doing all this documentation for insurance or whatever. I can instead go and meet with a few extra patients and give them my help. Like I think that is where AI could really be a benefit to people and society. Where I think it can be really problematic is when it kind of just like runs everything, um, or when it's used in creative spaces. Like I know that some writers, novel writers, are complaining of like there are some people just putting out AI written novels. Um, and the same goes with like art, right? I know I use AI for my own album art. Um, it's almost out of necessity, but I also think that like there's a lot of art being put out there that is being as being like someone made it, but it was AI made. Um, so I think all that I don't like that AI is in creative spaces. I think it has a lot of technical value to various um, sectors of society, but I think in creative spaces it should probably stay out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if U.S. Congress is even doing something with it. I thought there was like a mention of like they wanted to pass a bill that kind of limit it or do something with AI. So I'll have to see what happens. So for the time being, tread carefully.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we'll see what happens. But I guess for any songs that do have lyrics too, first off, do you write any lyrics or do some of your collaborators kind of contribute to the writing process?
I write all the lyrics. Even in the metal music that I'm working on, I have a vocalist, but I write all the lyrics. I mean I really enjoy creative writing all as well on top of like music. So writing lyrics is really part of that. I really like poetry and you know lyrics. I think are basically just poetry and like a um they're just poetry. I don't know what else I was going to say about that, but um yeah. So I really enjoy writing lyrics and um that's part of like the anxiety though that I was speaking of earlier, you know, about being vulnerable with the music when you put it out. Like when you write lyrics, a lot of it comes from, you know, places that are difficult, you know. A lot of like my creative process and what I write is almost to like help with processing difficult shit that's happened. And so writing out a song and like putting it out there to the world, and if someone says it's shit, well, it's just like, well, this song meant a lot to me, so I mean, that hurts, you know. So, um, but anyways, yeah. So I write the lyrics. I really enjoy writing lyrics a lot. Um, yeah, yeah,
It's almost like you want to say, "Yeah, it's just my music." Then fuck you, man. So
yeah. Yeah. I would want to say that. But I imagine a lot of musicians want to say that. YouTube comments or whatever.
I'd say, don't I did this in here. It crossed your mind once or twice whenever you saw a bad comment. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm guilty of it too. So don't worry about it. But I've always held myself back. So just have that little war in your head that goes on. Be like, oh, I just want to get something out, and be like, no, 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 no. Let's just
Rein it
get
in a
down
little
here.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Just breathe. All right. That's your way. So, I guess, what do you normally like to write about in your lyrics here too? Do you like doing real world experiences? Because I know you mentioned the idea of a little poetic. So I guess what are your lyrics about?
Yeah, I mean, currently where I'm at, I write a lot of lyrics for my family, my friends. I mean, if you have read any of them, there are some that are romantic. Clearly, that's for my muse. It was my girlfriend. But I write a lot. Just like there's a song called "The Rain That Falls Quiet." I had a family member who was in the hospital, and so that was kind of just a song about like what it would be like to lose them. They're sick. It's kind of like a song about grief and learning to cope with grief. I write a lot about like mental health too. So like "Found," another song on the EP, is a song about um, just like kind of taking over your own story, not letting anyone else influence how you want to live, and kind of just writing out your own narrative. Um, and then sometimes I kind of just like to play with like the creative writing side of myself and write songs like "Doc Black," which is you know just a weird horror inspired song. And so yeah, it really varies on where the lyrics come from, but they typically all stay around like lived experience, mental health, um, and then some songs are just for people in my life. I just put a demo version out of a song that was for my mom, or for my parents, but mostly for my mom. So it's kind of, it varies a lot, but it typically stays within that kind of realm, of mental health, processing, all that.
Yeah, I see what you mean there too. Especially hard topics such as mental health here as well, because of how prevalent it is in society these days. So that's
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
Right. You able to go to work, they're made. So I
Thank you.
think it's some killer music. All right. But my next question right here, I guess, first up, what social media and streaming platforms are you on so people can check you out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm on Facebook, Minstrel Acoustic, and Instagram is also Minstrel Acoustic. Um, and then my music is primarily on Bandcamp. I don't yet have anything going on Spotify or YouTube, but I kind of want to, with the release of my next EP, which I think is just like stronger production wise. So I think that's one I might push a little bit more. Um, I do want to kind of produce some videos for like YouTube, um, and things like that, but primarily just on Facebook, Instagram, and Bandcamp. Bandcamp's where you can listen to the music. I don't have it on my Facebook or Instagram yet, but there are links to everything on both Facebook and Instagram.
Jose, did you join the Facebook group Band Together?
No, I don't know of that.
There's a group that a couple friends of mine had put together, and it's actually where a lot of indie musicians and other, I guess, other musicians as well come to hang out here too, and they just talk about the music, try to maybe form any collabs or anything.
Cool.
Maybe even share some advice here and there too, because since it is a pretty crazy world out there and some pretty fucked up shit going around too. So Band Together, it was made by Box and Sticks, Christina and Greg. So strongly recommend you join. So
All right. Appreciate that. I just took note of that. I'll definitely check it out.
no worries. But it was kind of leading into this question right here too. So for those musicians on social media or in your neck of the woods, since the Bay Area is always known for its music scene and everything too, what advice would you give to musicians both in the scene and on social media?
I would say, for both, just in the scene and on social media, is just to like believe in yourself. And that sounds very cliche, but there are a lot of moments that I've kind of spoken about a little bit where it's like, oh, you write this vulnerable stuff and put it out, and just really kind of believing that like what you wrote is at the very least good enough for you. Um, I think that's really important to maintain, within, internally, to be like, I don't care if like people love this or hate this, like I like this and that's good enough. And like, so that's something that I would advise, like trying to make almost a mantra. Um, just to even as like a coping skill for like haters online, of being like, if someone's going to hate on you, well, at least I like this, so like that's good enough. And so I would say that's part of it. um is just to really believe in what you produce and being proud of it. um and so in the scene specifically, I don't know a whole lot about it, but what I do know from back when I was trying to play some live shows is uh, network. Find people who are involved in the scene. Find people who, really put those productions, uh, or set up those productions so that the next time they do, they're thinking of you and they're thinking, hey, I met that guy at that one show and he, has a band and his band is this band and they're pretty cool. Like they would fit this bill. Like networking is key to like getting off the ground in the live music scene. Um, so as far as streaming goes and online, you got to sell yourself and you got to market yourself. I mean, if you do something that's unique and different, play to that, because people, they'll hear, they hear. I know a lot of people who go through music, they're trying to find new artists and it's just a lot of the same stuff. If you do something unique, really play to that, put that out there, say I combine dubstep and country, and then people will be like, what the hell, like that's that's wild, like I got to take a look at that. um so yeah, that's all my kind of advice that I have for. So there's the scene, streaming, and then of course just like as a musician and a human being, like just believe yourself.
Yeah, you ain't lying here too, especially in this age, as we mentioned earlier, with like the whole thing of AI kind of growing. And there actually was something I did find a little disturbing, and I don't know how true it is, but at the same time, you can still find it a little disturbing. But in one of this TV series called Homeland, and this is actually dealt with like people in like the CIA, for instance, who are like, I think it was this time dealing with Russia, as it normally always goes.
Mm.
And I think they were trying to look for this like specific group. I guess it was always doing something on social media to kind of do that whole division thing, like what you see like these days. They ended up finding out. I want to call it like a social media mill because it's just these people who are getting paid just to trash you, and I guess even like use like say bad things on social media to kind of create that division here too. So that's just a nickname I throw it. I don't know what the actual term of it is, but at the same time, you're thinking like, well, you can probably see how it goes in real life here too. So it's probably not surprising to say the least here too. So
I believe that, man. That's scary.
yeah, and I mentioned about your girlfriend a little bit here too. So I'm picturing you, whenever you're just getting ready to get into it too, you're gonna play ZZ Top's "Give Me All Your Lovin'." So, don't let up until we're through. So just want to throw that out there too. But good woman, you picked a good fish, to say the least. So. Okay. So Tyler, we breezed through the questions here pretty good. So I guess here, let's jump into the phone ones. Ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Hit me.
Let's start here with the first one here too. And recently, it was brought to my attention here too. It's always good to list like currently because I think people's habits and I guess even tastes seem to change every now and again here too. So the first one, I guess, what would you say is currently your favorite food?
Mm, favorite food. I um I love street tacos. Tacos al pastor specifically, like marinated pork tacos with some onions, cilantro, and spicy salsa specifically. Um, that's kind of my current favorite food. It does switch off between pizza and sushi. They're all very different things, but um, yeah, currently I would say tacos al pastor.
Is it like actually what you see like those little carts on the side of the road, for instance?
Oh yes,
Yeah. Oh man, that's pretty cool. And I
yes,
guess
taco trucks.
Taco trucks. Yeah, that's what they used to do. I guess. Do you guys have like a little spot where like all sorts of trucks, food trucks, get together, or it's like a music festival or something?
They do have that actually. There was one in the Bay Area here last weekend. It was Blues and Brews festival, and it was a lot of blues music and obviously beer. And they had a bunch of food trucks there as well to listen to live music, have some food and beer, and yeah. I mean, those are probably some of my favorite places, man. I don't know about you, but like food, beer, and music. I mean, sign me up.
It's like the other side of heaven before you know it. So
Yeah, yeah.
I can see why. And San Francisco, would you say it's pretty diverse? Because I know they have Chinatown down there too. So I imagine you have an Asian, an Italian, and all those other places, ethnic groups as well.
Yeah, man. They have districts for pretty much all different cultures out in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. Just in general, you can find good food from pretty much any culture out here, and it's not super super difficult. Um, and I think that's one thing I really love about San Francisco, the Bay Area, is that like if I'm ever feeling Thai food, I can find a really good Thai restaurant. If I'm ever feeling Indian food, I can find a really good Indian restaurant. Like it it really is everywhere. Good food. So
Food, glorious food all around us. So
one of the few consistent pleasures of life is food.
yeah, I think nowadays, I think I always tend to get worried whenever I say like no artificial flavors because you wonder like how
Oh,
true are they actually being, to be honest, too. Like, what part of this is not artificial in a way?
right, right. Yep.
All right. A good choice, nonetheless. So, for the next question right here, I guess, what would you say is currently your favorite movie?
Oh man.
I know you mentioned about horror movies earlier, too, so I wasn't sure if it was any sort of slasher or some of the more recent horror.
I've seen some pretty good horror films recently. I'm gonna I have a couple answers for this question. So my all-time favorite movie is probably Return of the King, Lord of the Rings. That I pretty much watched that. I watched the whole trilogy, the extended trilogy, uh, pretty much once a year, man. Like I'll just like around the holiday times, I'm watching all 13 hours of that. But currently, I recently saw a couple horror films in theaters that were really good. I saw Long Legs. I don't know if you saw that being marketed out. The marketing was really cool for that film. Excuse me. Um, that one was really good, but an even better one, which was a more indie, was Oddity, and I think that was probably one of my favorite horror films I've seen in a long time. Um, and one of my favorite slashers is Halloween, Michael Myers, uh, classic. Um, but that's a tough one, man. I probably have like a top 20 number one favorite movies. Um, but those are kind of like you know some of the more recent ones.
I think the one thing that's kind of ticking me off these days, and it's because like some artwork, or I guess even like old books, for instance, that made their way into the public domain, and one of them was Winnie the Pooh. They're doing Blood and Honey now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what are you doing? So
There was a there was an old show called the Banana Splits. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Banana Splits, but one of my dad's favorite shows as a kid recently went into the public domain, and someone decided to make a horror film about it. And the Banana Splits are like these just kind of like Winnie the Pooh. They're just like these silly characters, like a dog, a chicken, and like characters like that in these big mascot costumes. And we watched it because we were just like, how could they make a horror film off Banana Splits? Like, how can these things be scary? And so it was just kind of irritating. Like why? Like just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know. Um, so yeah, I agree with you there.
I think what's funny is like the first Blood and Honey one. I think they had a budget of like $100,000. They made like 5 million off of it. So even though it was like
Oh
bashed like crazy, so it's almost like, hey, it worked. We got
yeah,
money out of it. That's all that matters.
Because people are like, I want to see what Winnie the Pooh looks like in like a horror, like a bloody horror film. Even though it's going to be shit and it's stupid, I don't want to see what that looks like.
Apparently, yeah. Actually, now I think they're going to do Steamboat Willie. I think Rob Zombie is going to be a part of it now.
God, that's ridiculous, man.
All right, we'll see what happens. Actually, no, they're doing one with Pinocchio next. Oh my gosh! And actually, funny enough, the one with Pinocchio it actually sounds like it has a decent premise, but then it's almost like you had to make sure you execute it right. So
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I could see Pinocchio a little bit more because even the original animated film was like a little bit creepy, at the end and a little bit scary. So like I could see it working, but like Steamboat Willie, I mean, come on, how is Rob Zombie going to do anything with Steamboat Willie?
it's Rob Zombie. He does whatever he wants. So
Really? Yeah.
we'll see what
True.
happens. But I can just see it a mile away. It's not going to get like any sort of rewards or let alone good reviews out of it too. So
Right. Right.
we'll see what happens. But actually, I know you talked about Pinocchio right there too. I think the one that was always freaky was when they start turning into donkeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow, if it ends up in your dreams, you know it did something right, and it also scared you for life, let alone scarred. So,
That's a good indicator.
yeah, very much. Okay. For the next one right here, in terms of drinks here too, I guess, what's your favorite alcoholic drink, and what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Uh Favorite alcoholic drink? Really, I mean, any beer. I used to be really into like IPAs, any pale ale, though I must have some sort of allergy or something to them because I get really kind of simultaneously fucked up, but also kind of sick. So I've been kind of reverting more to like Pilsner style beers, lagers, because I can my stomach can handle that better. But beer, man, is kind of my go-to alcoholic drink. Not super shy around around them. I'm not a huge fan of like porter, but yeah, pretty much anything. I love a stout, love pilsners. I do love an IPA. Just can't really drink them all that much. But um, non-alcoholic coffee, no doubt, no doubt. I pretty much exist because of coffee. Like it just how like for even this morning, like I had to have a cup of coffee, otherwise I was going to be a zombie. Which is like, yeah, no, I really enjoy coffee. So
Hmm, I see. And I was going to make the joke saying, like, you probably lived a previous life, and since you've been reincarnated, something bad happened in that previous life where you don't like IPAs. So it's probably your body trying to tell you something.
I know. So maybe the last me was an IPA drunk or something. I don't know. Like it just can't handle it anymore.
I'd say if that was the case for me, maybe not so much drinking, but I think my problem is I tend to get a little sick when I go to Florida for some reason. It's happened to me twice, and I always thought it was both by accident because I thought one was my fault. The other one was because I ate bad Chinese food. So,
Mm, that'll do it.
so I want to test it again, and if I end up getting sick for whatever reason, I'm going to say I am cursed. I'm not coming back to the state anymore. So,
Yeah, the past you lived in Florida or something, and your body's trying to tell you don't go to Florida anymore. Something bad happened.
apparently, yeah. But hey, the choice is nonetheless here too. So, and the last one, I guess. So, what would you say is currently your favorite song? And let's do it like this. What's your favorite song mainstream and favorite song in the indie community, if you have any?
Mm. Ah, gosh, that's more difficult than the movies. Um,
You're probably gonna have to do heads or tails to see which of the two he's gonna have to pick. So,
I mean, the indie scene is a little bit easier. I currently really like this. Well, they're kind of blowing up now, but they're called Royal Otis. They did a cover of Murder on the Dance Floor, um, and their music is just it's really fun to listen to. I saw them live at a festival a couple months ago, and um, yeah, they're kind of killing it. And same with the band called Idols. They were a bit more indie, and now they're blowing up too. Um, they have some great music. I would definitely recommend checking them out. One of my favorite songs by them is Roy off their new album Tank. Um, I'd probably go with that one as far as indie goes because they're not mainstream. They're still, you know, less well known, bit more underground, but blowing up nonetheless. As far as like mainstream goes, shit, man. I mean, consistently, I listen to a lot of Linkin Park. It was funny that you mentioned them earlier because they're just really huge influence for me. Um, and I get like a nostalgic feeling every time I hear Breaking the Habit because I used to hear it on the radio back when I was in elementary school, junior high. And their music just kicks ass anyway. So, but I would probably go Breaking the Habit. Yeah, very influential song for me, and also gives me that nostalgic feeling, and part of Linkin Park's discography, which I'm a huge fan of them. So that's what I'll go with.
Yep, that's actually a very good choice here too. And I was gonna say, try to imitate Chester's voice. Try to do like crawling princess, be like so insecure, that whole thing.
Yeah,
So,
difficult to do, man.
very much. But may he rest in peace here too. He went too soon.
He
So
did. He did. I always think about what I never got to see them live. I totally would. Um, I wonder what they'd be doing nowadays. I do know that Linkin Park, the rest of the members were looking to recruit a new vocalist, and they were going. Uh, they were looking at like female vocalists instead, which I think might be a good idea, considering that Chester's voice is so difficult to emulate. I don't know if anyone could do his vocals justice, but I think changing it up with like a female vocalist would, you know, be interesting and still maintain like the fidelity of like Chester's old vocals. So
I don't know. It'd be interesting how she would pull off one step closer. To be honest.
yeah, shut up when
Oh,
I'm talking to you.
yeah. It'll be
I'd
like,
be
oh man.
interested to see that.
I don't know, but I think whoever a boyfriend or partner is would be kind of freaked out after hearing that sort of that
I
certain
know.
lyric. So
Yeah.
I'll just see what happens. I don't know. I tend to think like you can't really replace it, and you don't know what the reaction is going to be if you brought in whatever the gender is, a new vocalist. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just see
Yeah.
what happens, but I wish them all the best going out there. So we'll see what happens. So, okay. So Tyler, we've reached all the questions right here. We are down to one more question, and I guess before we jump into it, first off, do you want to show off your Haggard tattoos real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of different ones. I've got this was the one that I was talking about, is kind of influenced uh by Minstrel and like influenced Minstrel. It's like a little jester guy here. I also have the Aegis which is a Nordic symbol for protection. Um, I have the Tree of Life Nordic symbol. I have a wolf. This is what I got when I was like 18. First tattoo, which is pretty clear. It's the first tattoo, faded and you know whatever. But then I have this one here, which is if you've ever played Dark Souls, it's Artorias, one of the characters from Dark Souls. And I have this symbol, which is from the show Supernatural. Got it with my mom. We're huge fans. It's anti-possession symbol from the show. Then I've got others in places that wouldn't be appropriate to show.
Okay, fair enough. That one tattoo is Artorias. It looked more like a Nazgul at first when I was looking at it.
Yeah, I mean,
Ah, there it is. Okay, I'm seeing it now.
yeah,
The
but a
way,
Nazgul would be cool.
actually, the way his helmet, and I guess whatever it is they call it, that's on the top of the helmet there. It honestly was making it look more like a hood. That's why I was a little confused at first.
I mean, he has like the face part. It is it kind of like a hood, so I could definitely see Nazgul. Yeah,
Yeah. And what the hell? You didn't put Sif on there? What the hell, man?
I know. Hey, man. I mean, I kind of have Sif over here, I guess.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. And I did play Dark Souls. I did play all three, and I have beat all three, both
Awesome.
both the main storyline and the DLCs. to say the least.
Fantastic games.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I was so relieved after in Dark Souls 3 being Gale. That was, I mean, one time, but that's all I needed. So,
That fight is so badass. It's like cinematic. There's like lightning and all that. Yeah, it's awesome.
I would say I beat him with a strength build, which I will, that's what I would like to toot my own horn to, because I know people want to be fast and quick, but mine was with Fume, Ultra Great Sword, or Fugs, as they like to call it. So,
Yeah,
so
very slow moving.
I would say I will toot my own horn to that too, so I'm proud of that. So.
As you should. That's an accomplishment. He's
Same
so
thing
fast.
with Midir too. I would say with Midir as well here too. I beat that with a strength build as well. So
yeah, one of the best dragon fights in my opinion. Still, even after Elden Ring.
Midir, I was going to
Yeah,
think maybe Calamy would be another one. That one I
that's
would say
classic.
was a little bit annoying too. So okay. Did you have any questions though, or anything else you want to say before we jump into it?
I guess I have a question for you. Of like, how and why did you start this podcast?
Let's see. The idea of podcasting is something I stumbled upon way back when. And I figured, that sounds pretty cool, but what exactly does it all entail? And the way they kind of described it at times, it was almost like you had to describe something, maybe like for a product, for instance, beauty product or whatever. And other times I'm like seeing these people just sitting down, they're just chatting and having these little sorts of conversations. So I said, I've always dug music, so let's get into music a little bit here too. When COVID happened, it allowed me to finally get that opportunity to finally start interviewing people. So started interviewing just drummers initially, and one of them was a good friend of mine from college, and he was my first interview I'd done. He's now living large in Nashville, Tennessee, with a country group or something.
Right.
And after that, as I said, stuck with the drummers. Eventually branched out to like other people in different genres, a couple rappers. None of them more like real big names. In fact, my more recent one was with Dallas Toller Wade from Nile, and now he's with Narcotic Wasteland. So,
All right.
really, I just wanted. I pretty much gave him the same script here too. So I mean, like everyone gets the same questions and everything as well here too. It's just something to at least keep the flow going and everything as well. So
Yeah.
but everyone's story is a little bit different here too. But it's good to get out there and just interact here too, because I'm pretty much an introvert at heart. So and I have a hard time holding like long conversations, let alone trying to start ones with complete strangers. So
Yeah, I hear that.
but definitely doing this podcast to help break down that wall of introversy, as I normally like to create that word. So and here we are. The rest is history.
Right on. All right. So it kind of all started from like you're like, I talk music, podcasts are interesting, and also I want to kind of break out of my introversy and get to meet some people and engage in long conversations. Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Yep. And slowly our empire is expanding from Sweden to Germany, UK, a little bit of Greece, and then around the States here too. So we're taking it over slowly. Actually, one in
Awesome.
South Africa too, and even some in New Zealand and Australia as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Probably gives you a lot of different perspectives then.
Yeah. It's always good to at least ask some questions so you can at least see what happened too, and as well as like how bad COVID was in and around the world as well. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so you at least
Very
get
cool.
the perspectives. So it's all good.
Well, thanks for sharing.
No worries. Do you have anything else or?
That'll do for me, Brian. Yeah.
All right. That's good. But for the last question, it kind of goes like this, and you might have been harping on it a little bit here too, but here's how it goes. So, given what COVID has done, obviously, it seems you have been pretty blessed. I know there's a little bit of anxiety here and there here too, but it looks like you and your family have pulled through, and looks like you're doing well as well. But for those musicians and people who have been impacted by COVID or anything else in their lives, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in the post-COVID world?
Message of hope. Yeah.
I wanted to say you had to put on your Jesus hat now. So,
I
yeah.
was just thinking about, kind of my own experience. My message of hope is, through through music, I think we can all find some form of healing forward momentum, forward progress. As far as like what musicians can put out there, and it's part of the believing in yourself. Just really really using music to sustain your soul, and like use it to find ways to appreciate what does exist for you, what does matter to you. And then for people in general, say, yeah, I mean, life does come with pain, but coming to acceptance of it, of some of that pain, can alleviate the long term suffering. In that, if we reject what is happening, what is difficult about existence at times, we then lead, that leads to more suffering. And I think that, relying on our people, our friends, our family, relying on music too, I think can help alleviate some of that suffering and lead us to kind of growing, accepting, and living our existence as best as we can, with what we have, considering COVID was uncontrollable. It's hard to live around something that you can't control, and alleviate anxiety of that. And I think accepting the things that we can't control, and recognizing what we can, and making differences in that way, I think will really allow folks to live joyous and you know healed, positive lives. So like that's kind of my my TED Talk spiel of like hope.
That's a tough question, but it's always good to at least get people's 2 cents out of it here too. But spoken like a true prodigy, to say the least.
Thanks, Brian.
No worries, you're all good. Yeah. So Tyler, we reached the end of my podcast right here, and boy, oh boy, did we talk for a good hour and 30 some minutes right here. But
Yeah, it's a
I guess,
pleasure.
do you got any final words? Any shouts you want to give before we close?
No, I really appreciate you having me on here. This was a lot of fun. It was interesting. I've never done an interview um, outside of jobs, so this was really cool to get to do. If anyone's interested in the music, check out Minstrel Acoustic on Bandcamp. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. Um, yeah, I have hardly any followers outside of friends and family, so I'm responsive. So if you want to talk music, talk whatever, comment, give feedback, I'm all ears, and I will respond. So, um, but again, Brian, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be here and talk about my music, talk about music. It's been fun. I appreciate it, man.
No worries. And I was gonna say what social media you're on right here too, but you obviously jumped me to the gun right there, so it's all good.
Head of the game.
Yep, he's thinking ahead, or he has some Persian knowledge of what I'm gonna say next here too. But here's how he closes it out. So everyone, my guest today was Tyler Brown, hailing from the West Coast of the Bay Area, San Francisco. He's part of his own little music project. I guess some collaboration here and now again, but Minstrel Acoustic. So make sure you go hit him up on socials, go hit him up on all streaming platforms. Go help this brother out. He's just starting out, getting his feet wet and everything here too. So we'll see what happens. So, all right. I wish you all the best going forward there, mate. So you stay safe because it's a crazy world out there. Rock on.
Rock on,
Oh,
Brian.
stay tuned, y'all.
Thank you.